In 1764, Horace Walpole publishes The Castle of Otranto, the first Gothic novel. In 1940, Cornell Woolrich publishes The Bride Wore Black, the first Noir novel. And in May of 2024, the public got their first look at Deadlock, the first Gothic Noir video game.
Huh? What do you mean BioShock did it already? Why didn't you tell me that before I started making the video?
Deadlock is a third-person MOBA with hero shooter elements developed by Valve, best known for their work on Half-Life and Team Fortress 2. The game is still in early development, but the lore and aesthetic is deeply woven into every nook and cranny, from the UI to the map. The game takes place in an alternate New York City during the late 40s, following an event that's brought the supernatural to life. Spirits line the streets, and a great maelstrom blurs the line between fiction and reality. The game draws a nearly perfect blend between the Gothic and Noir, and that's what I want to explore in this video. Welcome to the Cursed Apple. The world of Gothic literature is a long-spanning one, to say the least. It's the birthplace of monsters like werewolves, vampires, and giant helmets that crush you. They crush you. I think that's probably the most dangerous monster. There's not really much you can do to stop that. Still, the one thing more prevalent in Gothic media than the monsters are the tropes that the stories follow. The heroes of these stories must band together against supernatural phenomenon, with the mortal and immortal worlds acting as enemies, polar opposites. Creatures, if they exist, are less of a physical threat and more of a metaphorical one, representing some hidden truth about humanity. However, some of these monsters count as both, such as the vampire. Blood-sucking parasites, vampires predate themselves against humanity, but their thirst is often not just for blood, but connection as well, such as in Sheridan Le Fanu's Carmilla. In the novel, Carmilla is sensual and deceptive, willing to do whatever it takes to attain her goals, and Deadlock parallels this nearly exactly. Mina Ha is a playable vampire in the game whose personality is sensual and deceptive, willing to do whatever it takes to attain her goals, that being total control over the vampiric society of New York. While her design is reserved, it communicates her vast wealth while additionally highlighting her vampiric state. Her bag has two clamps that appear like sharp canines, and her weapons magazine is instead a perfume bottle with a strange red liquid inside. Maybe apple juice or something, I don't know. However, the open heart-shaped design on her top communicates her ability to socially manipulate, and her gameplay reflects this as well, with one of her abilities literally called Love Bites. In fact, Mina's entire character is a reference to Gothic vampires, with her name a reference to Mina Harker, a minor character in Bram Stoker's Dracula. Coincidentally, Mina in Dracula is betrothed to Jonathan Harker, and while Mina in Deadlock was primed for marriage, it didn't exactly work out as intended. With the world of monsters, there is also the world of men, and an interesting trope occurs fairly commonly within Gothic literature, with that being the mysterious yet charming young man. The most obvious example of this trope exists in the very first Gothic novel, with that being the aforementioned Castle of Otranto. Theodore in Otranto originally appears to be nothing more than a particularly respectful and cordial peasant, but his identity soon proves to be none other than the true heir to the throne, replacing the paranoid and wrathful Manfred. Deadlock as a character reflects many of these traits, with that being Pocket. You see, Pocket's true identity is that of Aaron Fairfax, the heir to the throne of not any nation, but rather Fairfax Industries, a weapons manufacturing company. This detail modernizes the Gothic trope, trading in the status of king to CEO, a design that reflects a more American ideal. Aaron was primed to inherit the company until their 18th birthday, when a bullet interrupted their wedding. With Mina. Their wedding with Mina. The foreshadow, it didn't go as intended because Pocket got shot in the chest. However, they survived and now are undercover in the streets of New York as Pocket, determined to take down their father, who they believe to be the mastermind behind their attempted assassination. Pocket's character design reflects many of these aspects, with the large, oversized jacket they wear emulating a child wearing their father's clothing, supported by the suitcase they carry around, filled with strange, eldritch power. The long tassels on their scarf are reminiscent of frog legs, a reference to not only Pocket's ultimate ability, but to the mythology of witches and hags. Additionally, like Theodore, Pocket has a strict moral code, with many of their lines upon killing an enemy character being regretful.
Why am I fighting a hero? What's wrong with me? I'm becoming a monster, aren't I? Why are you making me do this? He didn't deserve that. I think the worst part is that my father would be more proud of me if I was trying to kill him rather than trying to stop him.
Now, why they decide to carry a quadruple barrel shotgun when they're a pacifist is beyond me, but it's also a third-person shooter, so there's only so much you can do. Another Gothic element of Pocket's character is their status as a Byronic hero, a term which originates from Lord Byron, a primarily romantic poet who is friends with Mary Shelley, the author of Frankenstein. Speaking of...
You know, earlier I made a joke about Byronic heroes, but seeing you here makes it less of a joke and more like I made my high school diary come to life.
Thanks.
Victor is probably the most overtly Gothic character in Deadlock, being a clear reference to Frankenstein's monster. Despite this, Victor carved his own path, with him having full mental capacity and a goal in finding his true creator. Paige has a keen eye for the Byronic, as Victor shares many of the traits of a Byronic hero. He's intelligent, alienated, aloof, and mysterious, yet charming and emotionally complex, gripping with the turmoil of his own origins. His character design was reflective of his Gothic origins, most obviously having a resemblance to Frankenstein's monster as seen in the 1910 adaptation, notably in his decayed skin and the bolts on his neck. However, his design goes beyond this, with his eyeshadow reflecting a brooding persona, and his general attractiveness referencing the original Frankenstein, where the monster is described as beautiful as well, down to the flowing hair that Victor shares.
I had selected his features as beautiful, great God! His skin scarcely covered his works of muscles and arteries beneath. His hair was of a lustrous black and flowing.
As one of the newer characters in this unfinished game, Victor doesn't have too much going on in terms of story, but I for one am excited to see how they handle this walking corpse. While Deadlock has absorbed much of its aesthetic from the Gothic, it is an equal amount of DNA from the Noir. Taking place in a metropolitan area during the 20th century, it stands to reason that the game would take some inspiration from the aesthetics of the times, which you can see most commonly reflected in the various advertisements scattered about the Cursed Apple, as well as the rubber hose style Learn to Play menu. However, the aesthetics of the characters themselves seem to wear their inspirations on their sleeves, reflecting many Noir character archetypes. Take Abrams, for instance. Abrams is a hard-boiled, hard-headed, hard-drinking detective who just happens to be Ixion, the game's rendition of lesser demons. From head to toe, Abrams is a love letter to the archetype of the detective, from the broken handcuffs on his wrist, to the flask on his chest which you can see has caught a bullet, to the perpetual cigarette in his mouth. Personality-wise, Abrams is a man who runs into problems fist first, with a cursed book in his hand and a revolver in another, ready to take on the world. Despite this, he's a man with a soft heart, offering his condolences to other characters.
You're the sheriff from Macomb, right?
Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
thank you.
And even entangling himself with women.
I heard a rumor that you moved in with Lady Geist.
Don't want to talk about it.
Who would have thought that a simple business card could start a star-crossed romance?
Nothing romantic about it, pal.
Not yet.
Not ever.
In gameplay, Abrams is a protector, with his abilities involving isolating targets and staying in fights as long as possible, mirroring his role as a detective. Another character who isolates targets is the Drifter, a vampire who eschews the traditional aesthetic of his kind. Drifter is an interesting character, being almost a deconstruction of the Gothic vampire. Rather than being a noble, charismatic man with a monster hidden inside him, the monster is unleashed full force, being more akin to an animal than a man. In this way, Drifter fits the Noir aesthetic more than the Gothic, with his prey often finding themselves isolated in dark alleyways, becoming nothing more than a body for some poor sap to solve. Additionally, Drifter seems to be a cynic towards institutional systems, primarily the very same vampire society Mina works to enter.
The Vampire Nation is a Ponzi scheme, Mina. The sooner you realize that, the better.
He's a man consumed by his own gluttony, spiraled into a depraved killer like the villain in a detective novel. His design reflects this perversion of humanity, with his stretched smile and tattered clothes making him look more like a homeless madman than a traditional vampire, though the fang-like design on the back of his coat combined with his red collar are reminiscent of the Gothic vampire. Of course, the criminal underbelly isn't always composed of murderers, with Wraith providing entertainment for those willing to shell out some cheese. Wraith represents the crime world in noir fiction, primarily the gambling scene, with many aspects of her design reflecting this. The turned-down fedora is commonly seen in games like poker, where blocking the eyes is important for hiding tells, and her Tommy gun is commonly used in the crime world during the 20th century. Additionally, the jacket draped over her shoulders widens her silhouette, making her appear larger than she actually is, representing her control over her side of New York. In-game, Wraith is a very strategic character, with one of her abilities, Card Trick, involving her throwing out a random card from her deck. This may be a stretch, but I suspect her ultimate ability to be a reference to dealers in card games, as it involves her telekinetically throwing someone across the battlefield, similarly to moving a card across a table. Wraith is fast-talking and witty, often cracking jokes or attempting to swindle someone.
See, I bet you were gonna do that. I just made $5. You could at least try to make it a challenge. If you think crime doesn't pay, you are outrageously bad at crime.
I'd like to look at one more character with an affinity for the noir, with that being the engineer McGinnis. Her design has several resemblances to Rosie the Riveter, the propaganda icon during World War II, primarily in a red headband, blue dress shirt, curly dark hair, and her physique. Rosie the Riveter has a history in empowering women to manufacture munitions for the Allies to use, and McGinnis has a similar job, manufacturing munitions for the aforementioned Fairfax Industries, a fact she proudly displays with a pin on her overalls. McGinnis is incredibly cynical, completely desensitized to the death she indirectly causes by creating weapons for Fairfax.
Do I love working for Fairfax Industries? No. Does it pay a small fortune? Yes. How do I sleep at night? Like a baby.
This aspect of her is very representative of the structural cynicism commonly found in noir fiction, where inherently corrupt systems must be followed for prosperity. While she shows admiration for quality craftsmanship now and again.
Who made you, Bebop?
Oh, Miss Shelley.
She looking for a job?
She's retired.
Well, when you see her, tell her she did great work.
She isn't above stealing the work of said craftsman.
Neat gun.
Thanks. I designed it myself.
Did you patent it?
Oh, no. Why do you ask?
No reason.
Despite this, she shows genuine sympathy towards characters she sees as heroic,
Appreciate what you did for Spanish Harlem, but I gotta do what I gotta do.
marking her as a particularly complex character, another noir trope. The world of Deadlock is as rich as its characters, with the design of the map reflecting the Gothic noir hybrid that the game inhabits. The buildings of New York are fused with the designs of castles, and Gothic gates wrap around the city's parks. The designs of patrons themselves are additionally reflective of this, as their obviously supernatural natures fused with two distinct aesthetics of New York, with the Hidden King representing the dark alleyways, rat's nests, and the overall grime of the city, and the Archmother representing the museums, libraries, and the general luster of New York. Additionally, while music is scarce in Deadlock, the distinct brass instruments commonly used in jazz, combined with the choral vocals in the background, paint the duality of aesthetic in the game perfectly. While the game is unfinished, the bones of its visual style are ever present, and the game is only expanding, with more characters being added on a regular basis. For a game that's effectively in an alpha state, I'd argue the game is a richer design ethos than several completed games. It's a masterwork of aesthetic, and I cannot wait for the full release. Now, while I was recording this, some patch notes just released for the game, so I'm just gonna give it a second to read those. They nerfed Graves?! No, this is a dead game. Forget everything I said. This is a dead game. I'm gonna go play Overwatch now. Bye.